It's been a while since I've reviewed a Meike lens, and that's not because they haven't been producing lenses. In fact, they produce so many that it's hard to keep track of them. That's why I have these lenses here, which are some APS-C Cine lenses. Now, these lenses are not new. I think they've been around for a couple of years, at least for micro four thirds shooters, which those of you who shoot micro four thirds, apparently you love these things. But they are now available for Super 35 or APS-C mount cameras. So in this video, I'm going to be checking them out. I'm going to skip over the packaging as I received these lenses partially unpackaged anyway, but there is a Pelican case available for the set, a superb hard case. Inside there are 6 slots, but I have only 5 lenses, and that is because I think the 35mm lens is popular, and I suppose that there wasn't a sample available. Still, what I did get was a 10mm, a 25, 50, 65, and an 85. All of them are T2.2, and they are relatively close in size and weight. 604 grams, 652, 644, 568, and 660 grams, going from 10mm to the 85. Another thing that you may notice is that the gear rings, a telltale sign of a Cine lens, are all located in the same place and they are all the same size. So if you do use a follow focus motor system, you should be able to easily swap them. Let's take a quick tour around the 10mm, and this will give you a good idea of how the rest of the lenses are made, as they are very similar. The build quality is great. The body is all metal and glass. Tolerances are tight and finishes are done well. Starting at the rear, there is a metal mount with no electronic connections, no weather sealing gasket here. In fact, not a single one of these lenses is weather sealed. Here you will see some lens specs, and these lenses are all made in China. Aperture ring is first, and it is nice. The resistance is good on all of these lenses. The 10mm and the 85mm have a little less dampening, but it's good overall. The markings are clear and easy to read, and they all line up perfectly except for this 10mm and the 65. The focus ring is up next, and it is very smooth. On the 10mm, it has a little bit more resistance than the aperture ring, but the focus rings are not all equal across the range. The 10, the 50, and the 65mm are stiffer, and the 25mm and the 85 are a little bit lighter and easier to rotate. Rotation distance appears to be all the same at around 210 degrees or so. The focus ring has markings in feet and meters for distance, and there is a nice little red ring around it, but I have to say the shade of that red is darker on the 10 and the 50 than it is on the rest of the lenses. Around the front, Meike logo, multi-coated lens specs, cinema lens, and a 77mm filter thread. That is consistent across the range, which is good if you are using filters or a matte box. The front lens elements vary with each lens, and although these lenses come with plastic front and rear lens caps, no lens hoods are provided. So far, these lenses feel solidly built. They are similar in size and similar in weight, and all the gear rings are basically in the same exact spot. But what matters most is performance. So I took these out with my wife and shot some video. All of this is straight out of my Sony FX30, ungraded, uncorrected, ready, set, go. All right, so performance is pretty good with these lenses. Everything was shot wide open at T2.2, and sharpness is pretty dang good. Now, when it comes to talking about sharpness and cinema lenses particularly, there are really two schools of thought. There are people out there who think that sharpness doesn't matter with a cinema lens because you don't need extra sharp lenses for video. And there are people on the other side that think, well, if it's not a sharp lens, then what's the point of buying it? So I'm not going to do a direct comparison between some of these lenses and, let's say, Sigma primes. But I will tell you that if I rate a Sigma prime at a 10 out of 10 in terms of sharpness, these I would rate at a 7 out of 10. In terms of distortions, there are some, but as a set, they seem to be fairly uniform. Colors and contrast levels were similar, and switching from one lens to another wasn't a drastic change in any direction. Bokeh on the telephoto lenses is pleasing, it's round with minimal flaws. There is a little bit of fringing on the edges, but it's not distracting, and it is especially large and pleasing on the 85mm. Flare performance was about average across all of the lenses. They do flare, but not in an overly artistic way, and the contrast levels stayed good into bright backgrounds. Focus breathing performance was surprisingly good. Even on the 10mm, which I was worried about, there's almost no focus breathing to speak of, so that is a good result. And part of me wonders if these lenses are simply repackaged other lenses from Meike, because specifically the 10mm in terms of performance is very close to one that I reviewed a while ago that was just a normal manual photo and video lens. So the build quality is great, the focusing is easy to nail, it's smooth, good video performance in terms of focus breathing. These lenses have neutral colors, good sharpness, there's a lot to like here. But although they are budget-friendly cine lenses, they are still just as expensive as other lenses available for Sony APS-C. If you were to compare buying 5 or 6 of these lenses versus buying the Sigma quartet of lenses, you wouldn't be saving any money. And I think that Meike has been steadily increasing prices over the years, but on occasion they will drop the price on something pretty drastically just to, I don't know, sell off inventory or something. It's pretty fascinating if you pay attention to it. In particular, that 10mm that I mentioned earlier, one of my complaints about that lens was that it was priced a little bit too high when it came out and when that video was published, but I just checked on the price of that thing like a couple of days ago, and it's like $200 less than when I posted that video. So prices do fluctuate. And in the end, these are manual lenses. They require follow focus motors for smooth operation. They are heavier. They don't make shooting video easier versus a standard autofocus lens. And if there was something spectacular about the render quality, maybe that would be more of a pull. But for me, I can't think of a situation in which I would bring a Cine 10mm manual lens instead of something like my Sony 11mm, for example. The Meike 10mm is $599. The Sony is $549. In sharpness, colors, chromatic aberration, flare, distortion, autofocus, the Sony wins. That's why I think these lenses get lost in the shuffle a little bit. There are simply way too many great lenses at close to those prices, to which it's kind of hard to recommend the Meike lenses, because other lens manufacturers, for example, if you want a set of some Cine lenses with some extra perks, you look at these Samyangs that have autofocus, they have tally lights, they have mounts for future accessories, and they're all the same size and weight, and they are optical performers. So those lenses with all of those extra features don't really cost any more than the Meike setup either. And again, you guys know about the Sigma quartet. There are just simply too many great options. And even if you narrow this down to just Cine lenses, there's a ton of options out there. So while they are good performing lenses, I think that the price point puts them into a league that makes it hard for them to stand out. But if they do go on sale, picking up one of these or maybe a set of them could make sense, as long as you want that Cine lens experience. Anyway, that is it for my review of this Cine set from Meike. Hope you guys enjoyed it and you learned something from it. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section below. If you are interested in checking prices on any of these lenses, I'll link them all out, and I'll include, I think, the 35 that I'm missing. So check that out down below as well. Stay tuned for more. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.